Well, hello and welcome to the Pastoral Thoughts Podcast. And this is your host, Jack Young. And we're in the office in studio today with Brother Tom Stiles from Arise Ministries. Just got done with our Silver Saints activity. Had a great group there. Just a great spirit and people talking about the Lord and sharing requests and a good...
neat group of people.
Yes, good message from Brother Stiles. It was a fun time. And so Brother Stiles is here today to talk about Roe v. Wade. And this past week, of course, it was leaked that the Supreme Court was going to overturn Roe v. Wade. And Brother Stiles is going to give us an update about what's going on and what we can probably expect in the future.
Well, it was announced on Monday that a document had been found. It was written by Judge Alito, and it said that the court was going to overturn Roe v. Wade and the Casey decision 5-4. Now, Judge Roberts is the question mark. He is not on that list. Mm-hmm. On Tuesday, Chief Justice Roberts acknowledged that it was a real document, that it was not a fake. Probably was released in order to put pressure, probably a law clerk in the Supreme Court. Very limited number of people have access to this. Mm-hmm. The way the court operates is they hear a case, they hear oral arguments, and then they make a decision in private, and then each one is, someone's assigned to write the majority opinion. Then there's usually a dissenting opinion. Sometimes there'll be more than one majority opinion, the main one, and then other ones. Same with the minority. They can, why they objected and specifically why they voted, and maybe different reasons, etc. So that's done. Those are rough drafts. Those are circulated to the other judges, and they decide whether they're willing to sign on to that document or not. Mm-hmm. The vote was 5-4, but they could change that vote. So the important thing to remember is it's not permanent. And then the other thing that's happening is the reaction to this. Mm-hmm. The reaction has been to put a lot of pressure on the justices. Yesterday, there were demonstrations in front of the houses of the justices that voted against it, Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade was decided in 1972, and it basically legalized. It took the matter of abortion away from the states mm-hmm. and legalized it. Actually struck all laws against abortion and said that a woman had a right to abort her baby.
And before Roe v. Wade, it wasn't federally illegal to perform an abortion. It was
state by state.
State by state. So in the state of New York, abortion was legal before 1972.
Yeah, Roe v. Wade did not change anything in New York State. New York State passed a law. Governor Hugh Carey signed that bill into law. And he said, I heard him say one day at Legislative Day that it was the worst mistake of his life. He regretted to his dying day that he had okayed that bill, which basically legalized abortion in New York. If the decision is permanent, is the one that they actually make in June. Usually they announce their decisions in June, mm-hmm. generally about the end of the month, and they'll release 2 or 3 of them each day, enough to get the headlines, and that's and then it goes on. Supreme Court does not hear a lot of cases. This case has to do with Missouri law that said no abortions after 15 weeks unless it's to save the life of the mother. It really will not change law. It won't ban abortion.
Right.
As some people are saying.
Right.
It simply will make it go back to the states, and each state will have to decide. Now, in about half of the states, abortion will still be legal. Mm-hmm. The other half, there are some restrictions. The restrictions sometimes have to do with informed consent, where a woman has to receive a scan to show whether or not it's a baby or not. I mean, that's kind of it's a deterrent. Some states have heartbeat bills as soon as the heartbeat can be detected. Some have pain at a certain point. Some are different dates. Some are 15 weeks. Some go as high as 22 weeks. Abortion before that will still be legal in those states in mm-hmm. most cases. So it's the reaction of the left. I mean, basically they panicked, thinking this is the end. Hillary Clinton called it a dark and dreadful decision. Mm-hmm. The director of Planned Parenthood, who is the number one abortion provider in the United States, called it horrifying and said it's the decision that we expected because we saw the handwriting on the wall. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting reference because the handwriting on the wall was from Daniel, and it was a matter of judgment, God saying he was going to judge. And I think we're in danger of
handwriting
judgment.
on the wall. Yes. Yeah.
So basically, the pro-abortion crowd cannot justify abortion except to talk about a woman's health, which is kind of distracting, or to talk about a woman's rights.
Woman's rights. We're going back
My
to
body.
the Stone Ages. Yeah.
Now, the same people that said we can't have an abortion because it's my body are the same ones telling us we have to get
mandate the
vaccines and we
vaccine.
have to wear masks.
Right.
So there's a double standard there, to say the least.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. Just different statements by pro-abortion advocates right now going on. Our president slipped up the other day and said that a woman should have a right to abort her child.
Yeah, exactly, and that's been
You're thinking,
that's
what,
been
what,
taboo.
What stage? Just fetal stage, toddler,
Yeah, that's
pre-adolescent, adolescent, teen,
That's-
adult.
That's been taboo.
What stage of the child?
The other side primarily does not want to admit it's a child. They talk about it a lump of tissue. They talk about it being fetus. They have other names for it. But what it is a child. 7 times in the Bible, God calls a woman that's pregnant as being with child. She's not with a lump of tissue. She's with a child. And we believe in the right to life that is guaranteed in our Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and bound with certain unalienable rights. Among these rights are life, liberty.
So there's different.
First one's life.
Yeah, and there's different developmental stages of a human being, and when you're conceived, there's a flash of light. You can watch it on YouTube. At conception, a flash of light. It says in the Bible that all my members are written in the book. There you get your genetic code, your DNA, which is separate from your mother's. Heartbeat starts after 18 days, and you could look at a baby that was even just a month into gestation, and you could tell that was a human being, child, right there. And so there's different stages of development, all the way through. And then we just had the Silver Saints, and they are undeveloping. they're deteriorating.
I don't know that I appreciate that, but I suppose there's some truth to that. We do have a body that's getting weaker each day,
and so
hopefully stronger in spirit.
There's that ancient sin that mankind, I think, has always dealt with, is dehumanizing or taking away the humanity of certain people groups. We saw that in Nazi Germany,
and then
we saw that with slavery.
Yep.
We said that if your skin color is a certain color, or you're from another people group, you're not human. There's
a lot of comparison between slavery and abortion.
Absolutely.
The Supreme Court once said that slavery is okay. The Dred Scott decision, they said that Dred Scott had no standing before the court because he was a slave, had been a slave. So they basically, you're not human. The court really, when Roe v. Wade, did not determine when life begins. In fact, they avoided that question. They artificially divided a pregnancy into 3 trimesters. In the first trimester, a woman could get an abortion for any reason. Second 2 trimesters for her health. And then Boe versus Dalton, they decided that health was anything that affected a mother's life. So basically the law is abortion on demand for any reason. Any reason could be, if I have a child, I'll have headaches. Well, I can guarantee you, if you have a baby, you're going to have headaches.
Sure.
When you bring a child into your home, there's going to be some headaches involved. Financial
hardship.
The other day on TV, there was a news story of a woman, and she was boasting that she had 2 children, and they decided not to have any more, so she aborted her child. And she actually admitted it was a child. And she said it would just cause too much financial difficulty in our family. So the decision was just financial.
Right.
So life is just discounted. And you wonder how her other 2 children will feel about this, seeing mom on TV bragging about killing.
They were an option by their mother.
Yeah, killing their sister
sibling
or brother.
Will not be in existence. Yeah, and of course, with life, of course, there is a lot of unexpected things in life, but nothing's unexpected with God. And we know from Scripture, you talked about a God referring to a child in the womb of its mother. But I think of John the Baptist, Jeremiah, the Apostle Paul. These 3 men, God stated to them that he had separated them from their mother's womb. And David said in Psalms that he was formed in his mother's belly by God.
By God himself.
And so God formed you and gave you your DNA. God also separated you for a purpose. So it might be unexpected or unplanned or from a poor mother, but the Lord knows that, and the Lord planned that person into being.
And we do not know how many babies have been aborted. The estimate is somewhere around 70 million, but nobody's sure about that. Kentucky just passed a law banning telemarketing abortion pills being prescribed because Planned Parenthood admits about half of the abortions in the United States now are done by pills. Mm-hmm. So we really don't know. People talk about the abortion rate going down, but we don't really know that because nobody really knows. There's only two sources of information: the Center for Disease Control. We know how dependable they are. And then the other one is the Alan Guttmacher Institute. And the Alan Guttmacher Institute is an arm of basically a Planned Parenthood. It's the number one provider of abortion in the United States. So between the two of them, we're not sure either one of them are accurate. California does not report, and there's a large number there. But of those that do report, about 10% of all abortions occur in New York State. And we have what is called tourism abortions, where people come in from other states. Kathy Hochul, our governor, is just now, just in the news this morning, asking the federal government for funds because if Roe v. Wade is overturned, we're going to have a huge influx of people seeking abortion. So she has in mind that New York will become the abortion capital of the world. And
she wants to use our taxpayer money and fly women in from all over the place
and subsidize the whole thing.
Abortions here. Where do you think this bloodlust comes from on the left?
Well, they used to talk about they wanted abortions to be legal but rare, and they're not using that for rare anymore. Part of the left mentality is to reduce the population. Mm-hmm. Margaret Sanger, who was the founder of Planned Parenthood, specifically wanted to reduce the population of less desirable or lesser
black
races, particularly blacks.
And if you're in the state of New York, down near New York City, it's probably one of the bluest cities on earth. And you are a black baby in your mother's womb, you're more likely to be aborted than to be born. Yes, and I've read where in the United States, 1 out of every 4 conceptions ends in abortion.
Amongst teenage pregnancies, it's over 50%.
And really, abortion is taught by the left is the same thing as a preventative, or the same thing as some sort of contraceptive, that the abortion's always on the table, but it's not. It is not the same thing.
No, not by any means.
No.
The other thing that's happening that we probably should note, we kind of skipped over, is the comparison between abortion and slavery. Mm-hmm. America probably is as divided today as they were just before the Civil War.
Absolutely.
Both sides. Now, the pro-life crowd, we've been energized. I mean, this is exciting. This could be it. This could be the victory that we fought 50 years for.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the other side is energized the other way. They're horrified, terrified. They're freaking out. They're protesting in front of the justices' homes, which I think is totally
very threatening. Yes.
Alito had to cancel a speaking engagement this weekend because of the threats that are there. They're increasing security around them. Our judges should not be intimidated. This is not how civilized people handle things. But the left is really, even the president's spokesman, Jen Psaki, the other day was asked about these protests. And she says, well, as long as they're peaceful, there's no problem. I don't know how she'd feel about them showing up in front of her house. But
right. And their definition of peaceful is not the same.
All too often, just the presence is very intimidating. They can't go out in public.
No.
Because they show up in a restaurant. We have Maxine Waters telling them about Trump people that
get in
their face and harass them and tell them, we don't want you here anymore. And this is a crowd that talks about tolerance, and they're the most intolerant people in the world. In fact, the very things they talk about, they almost always are doing. For instance, right now, the president's announced a disinformation, or the president didn't do it, but Secretary of Homeland Security last week announced a Office of Disinformation Governance. And they appointed a woman who has been known to spread all kinds of. She endorsed the Steele dossier. She discounted Hunter Biden's laptop. She talked about these people that are spreading disinformation about COVID.
So it's going to be their own ministry of truth. And it makes them so nervous that the American people can have an open and honest conversation. I think that if there's one bright spot here in the whole overturning of Roe v. Wade is that America can look in and examine once again the matter of abortion. You know, I've been over in Israel. I've been to the Holocaust Museum over in Jerusalem. I've been to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., and there's thousands of disgusting images.
Yeah.
But it's important. You know, why would we spend hundreds of millions of dollars for a museum to look at horrifying pictures so that people will never make that mistake again?
So we remember.
And it's the same thing with slavery. We ought to talk about it. We ought to talk about the horrors of it to ensure that it never comes to surface again. But yet you have 60+ million babies whose images are not seen, and if somebody puts them up, they're immediately censored. And you look at those dead babies, and they are every bit human being. It touches your heart the same as it does looking at Holocaust pictures or slaves with their backs ripped open. And so if we can have a conversation as a country, you know, I know that we're on the right side. And you even take in these crisis pregnancy centers, what they do with these ladies. Now, in the Bible, if you killed somebody, the reason why your life was taken was not because for the victim's sake or the victim's family. It was because it was the image of God. And you dishonored God. And you destroyed an image of God, an image bearer. And so these ladies, and they go in the crisis pregnancy center, or this, we're giving out baby bottles this Sunday, and we're going to pick them back up on Father's Day. So Mother's Day is this Sunday. Mother's Day, they get the baby bottles, do the coin drive, and it's for this CareNet, Compass Care, and then Caring Choices in our area. And fortunately, like even the town of Rochester, I think there's more crisis pregnancy centers than there is places to get an abortion. So we praise the Lord for that. One of the arguments of the left is like, who's going to take care of these babies? Well, I know like 1.5 million parents right now want to adopt
and can't. Yeah.
And they can't. And so there's ton and who's going to turn down baby? I think of Mother Teresa at the prayer breakfast speaking in front of Bill and Hillary Clinton, and she said, "Give me the babies. I'll take care of the babies." Like, that's not the problem. That's not the issue.
She also rebuked a country that would kill their own babies.
Yeah.
And so she was a very brave woman in that case.
Those mothers inside the crisis pregnancy center, when they see their babies, like the one that we're giving the coins to, they even have a vehicle, and it has 3-person staff. Yeah. They park in front of Planned Parenthood and give them the option in front of Planned Parenthood to look and see their baby. And if they see their baby inside their womb, when the mother sees its own image, which is the image of God, 80 to 90% more likely to save that child. And so I think what needs to take place, and the bright spot could be, is that we win some minds and some hearts because we're having this discussion.
Yeah, really, the battle for life is just going to begin. After the victory of the Allies in World War II in Africa, Winston Churchill said, "This is not the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning." I think that fits the situation now. We are going to see an intense battle now, and it'll move. If this draft is the final decision, then what the court said is there is no inherent right to abortion. They saw nothing in the Constitution that would even suggest that. That's got the left just screaming bloody murder. Oh, what about the right to privacy? Well, it's a separate person's body.
Yeah, it is
what they've said.
That the infant does not have any privacy.
And it basically overturns Roe v. Wade. They said that decision was very weak. Can the Supreme Court change its mind? Well, they did in Dred Scott. They did several others. I read the report, or the draft. It's 98 pages, I think. He cites all the laws where it was illegal to abort a baby before 1972. And then he just talks about the case, the situation, and said we find no evidence the Constitution gives any kind of right to abort. And what will happen then is the states will now have to make their decisions. What are we going to do? Sadly, New York's on the wrong side of this issue.
Absolutely.
In fact, Governor Hochul announced they're going to push for a constitutional amendment that gives a woman a right to an abortion. Now, if that happens, then the battle's going to be even more tense in New York. So I don't think most people are not in favor of abortion.
I don't think so. And the humanity of a person, again, I don't know where we've been, but I remember Hillary Clinton saying that abortion ought to be rare. And I can't remember what the words were.
They would say legal and rare.
Legal,
Bill Clinton, that was
rare.
his phrase.
Yeah.
Legal but rare.
And like it was a tragedy.
But today it's not rare. In fact, she just gave a statement. Hillary Clinton just made a statement on this, calling the decision dreadful and horrifying. I mean, she uses these terms, and then they warn, they're going to take away other rights. So they take away this right, then they're going to take away the right for interracial marriage, and they're going to take away for contraceptions. They're going to do this. They're going to do that.
Women are losing all rights, and we're going to
where there is no push to ban interracial marriage, nor is there any ban, and no politicians getting up and saying we want to ban contraceptives. That's just not happening. But the left is just going. I mean, they're freaking out. That's just the word for it.
Yes. And so I'm sure that the Democrats, they're hoping for anything to help them this election, because they're in for a real tough election cycle this fall. And I really don't know, honestly, how much that's going to energize their base. It might with some simpletons, but I can't picture it.
It certainly is a distraction. Mm-hmm. Part of the problem the Democrats have right now, they really don't have anything good to run on. They can't run on the economy. It's getting bad. We've got a war going on in Ukraine that we are totally powerless to do anything about. Mm-hmm. We're sending arms. So the war is escalating, and it's apt to draw us in. You really can't use that as an issue. They can't point to, look at how well we're managing the economy. You're not. But this becomes a distraction as well. So people all of a sudden are focused on that. I was kind of frustrated this last week with Fox News. They ran live coverage of Johnny Depp's case. And so that's the big story of the week.
It's very sad.
Soap opera that who wants to hear all the gory details of this couple?
No.
But this one really fits this is, we're gonna lose all of our rights. We're going to go. The sky is falling. No, the sky's not falling.
Right. This is a slippery slope, and we're going to go back into the dark ages. And it's.
Bernard Nathanson was one of the leaders of the pro-abortion movement before 1972. He was a doctor that performed, according to his claim, thousands of abortions. One day, as he was aborting a baby, he looked down and realized that's a baby. And he was horrified. And I heard his testimony one of our legislative days. We had him as a guest. And then he acknowledged that Roe v. Wade was all based on lies. Mm-hmm. There were not large numbers of women dying with back street abortions. They knew that, he said, there's no question it's a baby. Mm-hmm. Right almost from the start. It starts developing. It starts out as a 1-cell, 2-cell being, but then as it develops, there's no question the heartbeat is detected at 18 days, as you said. The other thing that's happened, of course, is our technology. We can now, I said sonogram, it's not sonogram that they use, but you can actually take a photograph of an unborn baby. And
the technology is amazing. You get 3D imagery of the infant and see all 10 fingers, 10 toes. You can see its facial features. They've even put cameras
inside the womb.
And it's amazing to look at the image of a baby.
See it develop. Surgeons now can operate on a baby inside the womb.
It's amazing.
Heart repairs can be done. Other things like that can be done. It's amazing and the technology simply says again and again, science agrees with Scripture. It's a child. It's a child. There's no question.
And, Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. And so you have the kingdom of God and you have the kingdom of this world, the kingdom of light, kingdom of darkness. And anytime when God's people strayed from him, you think of ancient Israel. And in the valley of Tophet was always a picture of hell. and Trophet was called the Valley of the Drum. And they beat the drum in the Valley of Trophet, and the reason why they beat the drum in the Valley of Trophet was to drown out the sound of screaming babies that were sacrificed to Moloch. I saw a meme from the Babylon Bee this morning, and they get it right so many times.
It's a satire magazine.
It is. It's not legitimate news. It's satire. And so they showed the image of Moloch there in the house. And, we have shortage of everything right now. The supply chains are all messed up, whether it's food or technology, microchips or whatever. They can't make automobiles. And so it says, Moloch says there's a shortage of infant sacrifice. And really, I believe that there is a side of darkness, a kingdom of darkness that is worshiping Moloch, whether knowingly or unknowingly. Yeah. And that's where this deep-seated bloodlust has gone on. The gods have remained the same. The false gods have remained the same. And you see this marriage of big government, big tech, and the powers that be trying to conform and influence society. They're scared to death right now because Elon Musk is going to buy Twitter. I mean,
freedom of speech is a dangerous thing.
God forbid that some of these people like you and I express our opinions where other people can read it. It's only one narrative, one line of thought, and really people have been kept in the dark. I think the Valley of the Drum, they've been kept in the dark. 62 million.
Well, you mentioned
babies.
The Holocaust Museum. That was hid from the German people for the most part. When Eisenhower, after Germany was defeated, Eisenhower forced German citizens,
to see that,
to walk through and see what their people had done.
And you see the videos of the people walking in, and they're happy, like they're on a picnic.
But then when they come, happy, they're shocked and horrified.
They're crying. They've had their heads down. And they do not realize that's going on.
We've had the same thing for 50 years with aborted babies. You do not see pictures.
No.
And you cannot see pictures.
You can't post them. You can't get a billboard and show photographs of aborted babies. I was reading in World Magazine a few weeks ago. There was some pro-life advocates. And the thing is, they always get mad at people. They shouldn't be doing this. Well, if you were in Nazi Germany and, you saw the Germans are putting the Jews up in smoke, you shouldn't be doing anything. You should be a law about, so these gals asked the trash collectors, this is trash guys, said, hey, can we have the bags? They're taking out, there's probably aborted babies in there. And the clinic was putting aborted babies in the regular trash. These advocates took them home, these aborted babies, and then tried to figure out, called the authorities, said, how can we honorably bury these dead? And the FBI showed up and raided this home, and the people who took those bodies were arrested because they're dealing with human bodies.
Project Veritas went underground.
Yeah, James O'Keefe.
They ended up in trouble.
Okay, so
exposing what Planned Parenthood was doing, selling baby parts.
So Project Veritas, they're in California. James O'Keefe there dressed as a pimp and had some woman disguised as a hooker and saying, I'm a pimp, I have hookers.
And she was
underage, a lot of them are and he says that in the video. A lot of these are underage and we need to get abortions very often. Where can we bring them? And so he's going to these abortion clinics. He's getting advice on how to bring his underage hookers in to get abortions, and they're giving him advice. And then he also recorded that conversation, which he got sued. They were trying to make him a felon, where he was recording them selling baby parts for as much as $50,000. So here's Big Pharma, who is evil, evil straight up. They're buying all these fetuses, and they want these fetuses for experiments and everything else. And the later stage of these babies, the more they're worth. And from what I understand, and this is just speculation, this is just rumor, but in the state of New York and, the governor of Virginia too said they wanted to they could deliver a baby, set it aside, and the mother and the doctor could discuss whether or not the baby's viable.
He actually, former governor of Virginia, actually admitted as a doctor what they did when a baby was deformed in some way. They'd have the baby born, set it aside, and then decide whether they let the baby live or not with the mother. There are movements. People, it's hard to believe, but there are people advocating that a parent has a right to kill their child up to the first year.
Mm-hmm.
So after the baby's born, even this is infanticide. This is murder.
And if you follow the logic of any person that is pro-choice, well, why not up to a year? Because if it matters on size or dependency, like if you're less human because you're in a lower developmental stage, then a 1-year-old is less human than a 10-year-old. A 10-year-old's less human than a 13-year-old, and so on.
At what point? Yeah.
Right.
When I was working with Dwayne Botley and New Yorkers for Constitutional Freedom, we helped the bill get passed that was called the Born Alive Act. The Born Alive Act said that if a baby is born alive, even if it was in an abortion procedure, but the baby is actually born, then the doctor has to do everything they can to save the baby's life. That was done away with by Governor Cuomo. So that's no longer the case in New York State.
And on top of that, these different labs, these different research labs, we have Chinese research labs also, like in the United States of America, that from my understanding, that a living baby is worth to these labs $1 million. They will pay the hospital $1 million to come and take that living baby out and harvest organs and blood and all these things that was worth that much money to them. So you think if Planned Parenthood was getting $50,000 for a fetus that was only in the first few months of development, how much is a full living baby worth to these people?
Just horrible.
It is.
Horrible to think about.
It is.
And I think of the statement, the president of Planned Parenthood saying the handwriting is on the wall, thinking that they knew this was going to happen. They basically can't argue their case. They don't have a case to why a woman should be able to abort a baby. But the handwriting on the wall is an indication of judgment. And you wonder, how long will God not judge America for this ongoing slaughter?
Think of Cain. What he told Cain, he says, "The blood of your brother Abel cries to me from the ground."
And that's just one man.
Right.
What about, 60, 70 million babies that have been aborted? The blood must cry out to God. So America really needs to turn back to God. And this is part of what I think evil is being exposed today. And I think a lot of people are realizing suddenly that the government we thought we could trust, we can't trust. People we thought, follow the science. That's some of the worst advice you've ever heard in your life. Follow the scriptures, follow the Lord. Science has often been wrong and often contradicts itself. When I was in high school, I loved science, wanted to be a scientist. And when at college, first year of college, I found out a lot of things I've been taught in high school as science were not true. Right. Were not true. And so, you realize, science is not dependable. You may not have heard today, they've announced that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is not effective and may not be safe, may have implications.
Wow, that's a big statement.
So they've taken it off the market. Center for Disease, I think Food and Drug Administration has taken it off the market. Well, we were told earlier on that this was going to save us. Well, and and healthy people were getting vaccines.
And if someone would have stated that, it was kind of like,
you're banned from the beginning.
Yeah, sure. Even if you said, well, you could get the vaccine, but you still get COVID. If you said at a certain time period, at some point last year,
you'd be taken off.
You've been deplatformed from media.
Yeah.
So the science,
in some cases permanently.
And the Bible talks about science, so-called science falsely so-called. Yeah. And there's that out there. I think of a few things too. One is millions of babies have been aborted, and therefore we know this, and we've met them. But there's a lot of mothers out there that have made that decision. A lot of times through poor counseling, poor influence,
pressure from parents, pressure from a boyfriend,
and so we have to minister to these ladies. And these ladies, like abortions, like any sin, confessed, forsaken before the Lord, it's forgiven, and God uses our sin. He can use it for good. A lot of the best pro-life advocates are ladies who have formerly had
and basically they're telling young girls, don't make the mistake that I made. Don't do what I did.
And so we see all sorts of ladies in Scripture from rough backgrounds that God used mightily. I think of the lineage of Christ. You have Tamar, you have Rahab the harlot, you got Ruth the Moabitess woman, you got Bathsheba. You got 4 ladies given in Matthew chapter number 1. The only ladies named in Christ's lineage, they're all from rough backgrounds.
Yeah.
And so there's plenty of hope for you out there if you're listening and you've had an abortion. God is a forgiving God. I'm going to preach on Moses on Sunday, and Moses was a murderer. He killed an Egyptian. It was every bit murder, and found forgiveness with God.
I'll probably speak on Jochebed, Moses' mother.
That's where we're going. The mother's ark. That's what we're talking about. There's 3 arks in the Bible.
It's incredible.
And the mother's ark is one of those arks. We're going to talk about that Sunday. So there's hope. And
it is Mother's Day, so it is a day we celebrate motherhood. Instead of celebrating abortions, we ought to celebrate the mothers who did go full term, did give the mother.
That's right.
I found I'll probably preach on great women, great mothers of the Bible. That's my general topic.
Yeah.
Be at Friendship Baptist in Rome this weekend. And, I found all kinds of different kind of cases, like Rachel and Leah, sisters that had to share a husband. I mean, that's not an ideal home situation, yet both of them were mothers that raised their kids. You think of Eunice and Lois. Lois is the grandmother, raised Timothy, probably by themselves. Father is not a picture. He probably was a Greek,
he's a
not
Greek,
mentioned.
a pagan, but they raised Timothy to be godly.
And they taught him from a young age to know the scriptures. So God is able to use any situation. And
absolutely.
And our past, often, some of the things we've gone through become the means of our having a ministry.
Right.
So
there's restoration. I'd say also another thing for Christians out there, get involved with your crisis pregnancy center that's near you. They're always looking for volunteers, trained volunteers. You can give to those organizations. I think another thing, and you mentioned it, is that America needs revival. We need to be praying for revival. That's the only thing that's going to change.
I think we're in trouble in a lot of ways. Yeah, even if the victory over abortion's won, if we win the battle for life, abortion becomes illegal in the United States. That's not the solution to the problem.
No.
The problem is deeper than that, and that is a relationship with God. America is great because it was founded on men and women who believe the Bible to be the Word of God, and biblical principles are followed. We follow God's counsel. God says, "Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord." Psalm 33, verse 12. And we now are not following the counsel of God. We're going opposite of God. We're running away from God. America's really committing apostasy. And as a result, we're getting the bad consequences. When you run away from God, bad things happen to you. You have financial problems. You have health problems. You have other kinds of problems. The place of blessing is to be following God's counsel, and that's what America needs to do.
Yes. Yeah, back to the Lord. Anything else to add?
Well, I think a couple things that we should know what the future is going to be. I write a newsletter called Arise, and if people would like to receive it, they can contact me at ariseministry.org. My email is just tom@ariseministry.org, or you can go right on the website and download the articles. The article from this week, I mentioned some things we can expect. Number one, abortion will still be legal in the United States. The left is trying to say it won't be, but that is not true. Secondly, you can expect an attempt to codify the right to an abortion in the Congress. It has passed the House in the past. The Senate can't do it because of the filibuster. They have to have 60 votes to vote on a bill like this. So you can expect an attempt to get rid of the filibuster. Manchin and Sinema have been the two that have stood up to some of the bad legislation simply because they disagreed, and they couldn't get the 50 votes. They'd have to get 10 Republicans. There are Republicans that have introduced a bill in the Senate to codify Roe v. Wade. So just because a person's a Republican does not mean they're pro-life. You need to know that when you're voting. You expect to attempt to expand the number of justices on the court. The left's saying, these MAGA people, Senator Schumer ranted the other day about these MAGNA people. Make America Great is what it stands for, these Trumpsters.
Right.
Well, they're judges that have been appointed by Donald Trump that are making a difference. And elections matter. Presidential elections matter. We're seeing the results. It may well be a victory that is won. But you're going to expect them are going to try to pack the court. That was attempted by President Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and failed. And I think it'll fail this time. You can expect pro-life activists to push for more protections for the unborn in various states. I mean, this is going to energize, I think, the pro-life movement. The Bible says, "Be not weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not." And it's real easy to get discouraged in the pro-life battle. We've been fighting this for a long time. I started a young man in the ministry.
Yeah.
I don't remember the date. It was before 1972. It must have been about 71. Michigan voted against abortion 2-1. It came out, and I was a pastor in Michigan, and it was 2-1. Mm-hmm. But the Supreme Court discounted all of that. See, the fear is they don't want the people to decide this. They want unelected justices. In fact,
every bad decision our country has made has come from the Supreme Court,
and many of them are 5-4 decisions.
Right.
Many of them are. It's that much of a difference. I do think abortion is going to be a major issue in the campaign, the elections this fall, particularly for the election of governors that are pro-life or pro-choice. They're going to, both sides going to line up. And I think you can see further exaggeration of the meaning of the decision. I think that'll go on.
Yes.
There'll be a more intense battle for control of both houses of the Congress, particularly the Senate. The president said we need more pro-choice senators. Well, we actually need less. So that's where the battle's going to be. New York voters have an opportunity. Schumer's up for election this year. We have an opportunity to say, no, we don't want this man representing us, advocating for all the things that he advocates for. But it's going to be in the hands of the voters.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
And unfortunately, our state is not on the right side of this issue for the most part. I'm not sure how many people really realize what the left is doing, but they're destroying America. Mm-hmm. And abortion is just part of that. What could be more destructive than killing the unborn? How many preachers, missionaries, doctors, lawyers, scientists, engineers have been aborted? People that might have made a huge difference.
Yeah, you name it.
I'm on Social Security now, and Social Security is always talking about running out of money, and the reason for that is we've aborted a generation.
Yeah, 62 million
people that should be paying for Social Security have been aborted.
Right.
That's part of the problem.
Yeah,
and we're seeing the consequences of that.
Yeah, a whole generation, 62 million, and then all the children that they would have had.
Yeah, so most of our schools are getting smaller. Schools are closing around the state. Why is that? Well, one reason, people are moving out. But the second reason is we've aborted the kids. Mm-hmm. And the results are kind of, the Bible says children are the heritage of the Lord.
Yes.
And every child is a wanted child.
And one of the curses upon Israel was that if they continue and harden themselves in sin, that they would eat their own children. And of course, directly, that meant that there was going to be such a famine in the land that people were going to do the unthinkable, and they were going to cannibalize their own children. But that's essentially what we're doing here in this country, is out of pure selfishness, we would devour our child's life for our own satisfaction.
Well, people are talking about their comfort or their finances, or
it would have been a
they're
financial
going to abort our child because this is going to be pressure. Well, it is a cost to have a child. We know that. Mm-hmm. But if a child's really wanted, if not by the mother, the child is wanted by somebody else.
Yes. Yeah, and all children are an investment, and you invest in the future. And it's that reaping and sowing. You invest into your children, you get blessings in return.
John the Apostle, my wife and I both love the verse in 3 John. I have no greater joy than to hear my children walk in truth. Mm-hmm. Our testimony is all 4 of our kids love the Lord, are serving Him. We have 12 grandchildren. All but one are really serving the Lord right now.
Yeah, what a miracle.
And that's a joy.
That's a miracle.
That's a joy.
Now,
really no joy quite like it.
There's nothing better than that.
I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, and my doctor is having his daughter-in-law and his daughter are both due to have a baby, and they're the first grandchildren. And he's quite excited about it, as you could understand. Yeah. And I said, there is no greater thrill than to hold your own grandchild, unless it's holding your own child for the first time. Mm-hmm. When you realize, I brought this child into the world, and it's just something about that. There's a lot of people that have empty arms because they've aborted that child that would have given them grandchildren, would have given them joy in their old age.
The heritage of the Lord.
And it's sad. Mm-hmm. It's sad that many people miss the blessing of having children and,
Yeah.
and seeing them grow and develop and mature and walk with God. I think it's a
there's bright spots along the way, and I'm talking about abortion. I'll give that the illustration of throwing the starfish back in the sea, little boy, and he goes on the seashore, and there's thousands and thousands of starfish washed up during the night, and he goes down there, and he's throwing one starfish back, and some man walking by laughs at the little boy, says, "You're not making a difference," and he holds a starfish in his hands, and "I made a difference for this one," and he throws it back into the ocean. And, I think of, for instance, my parents, they adopted my brother from Lifesavers Ministries in Amsterdam, New York. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
So Andrew,
it actually still operates. It's not as big as it used to be. But.
Yeah, so I mean, you know Andrew. He's a song leader in his church. He's got 5 young boys, and he had
they're special boys too.
Yeah, they're awesome. 15-year-old mother Andrew had. And my parents adopted him when he was 5 days old. His mother was a hero, birthed him, gave him up for adoption, and here they made the difference for one.
We probably should note 2 things. One, the crisis pregnancy centers do save lives.
Absolutely.
Maybe just one at a time, but they do save some. And the second thing, we've got to admire a woman who's willing to go through the pregnancy and give birth to a child and then give that child to someone else.
Absolute hero.
My youth pastor for many years, Jeff Duvall, was adopted by the Duvall family. He's a missionary having a big impact down in Ecuador. If that mother, it would have been much easier for that mother to have an abortion. But instead she gave birth to that child, and he's making a difference for Jesus Christ. Just one. Right. But how many others are like that?
Yeah. Yeah. And so you can make a difference. Absolutely.
The other thing we close with just encouragement for those who are involved in the pro-life movement. We are on the winning side.
That's right.
I've read the last chapter of the book. We win.
And Jesus said, "Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world."
And I think the other side knows that.
Yeah.
They're on the losing side.
The handwriting is on the wall. They knew it for some time.
So they're recognizing it, and they realize it, and they're scared to death. And maybe they should be scared.
They should be.
But not just the end of abortion, but the judgment of God.
Yeah, stand before God.
You're going to stand before God and explain why you thought it was okay to murder babies? I would not want to be in your shoes.
No.
So I think we need to
take
take away...
these 6 things that the Lord hate. Well, the one is
shedding
hands that
blood.
shed innocent blood.
Yep.
And there's nothing more innocent in this world
than a baby.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good.
Thanks for being on, Brother Stiles. Make sure that you visit, was it rise.org?
Yes, sir.
Arise.org.
Ariseministry.org.
Ariseministry.org. And sign up for his newsletter. Plural. The newsletter's great. And it comes once a week. It's short, readable, concise, and it'll be a blessing to you. And then if you're a preacher out there, and have Brother Stiles into your church and have him preach for you, he'll do a great job. But thanks for tuning in, folks.
Thank you for having me, Pastor.
God bless everyone. Thank you so much for watching or listening to the Pastoral Thoughts podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at pastorthoughtsmail@gmail.com. Also, if you want to check out more about our ministry here, you can visit pastorjack.org. I do have a blog that I do write. I'd love to have you as one of my subscribers there. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening. God bless you.